Narrator calm, chilling tone. Dreams. They're supposed to be harmless, right? Just strange little movies that play in our heads while we sleep. Some are silly, some are terrifying, and most vanish from memory the moment we wake up. But what if some dreams weren't just dreams? What if they were warnings? Glimpses into something waiting for us in the real world. Have you ever woken up sweating after a nightmare, only to feel like it meant something? Maybe you've dreamt of someone you hadn't seen in years, only for them to suddenly call you the next day. Or maybe you've dreamt of an accident, and then hours later, something eerily similar happened. Pause. Lean in, darker tone. If you've ever experienced that bone-deep chill where your dream and reality blur together, then you know exactly where tonight's stories are going. Because tonight, we're diving into 3 true scary stories where dreams read into reality. And trust me, these aren't the kind of stories you'll forget when the video ends. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss the nightmares I have for you every single week. Who knows? Maybe one of these stories will sound a little too familiar. Sound. Faint low rumble. The first story is about a young college student haunted by a faceless man in her dreams. First, it was just another nightmare. But then, she started seeing him while she was awake. And when she checked her security camera one night, she realized her dream wasn't a dream at all. Our second story follows a man who dreamt of drowning. Over and over again, he saw himself dragged into a dark, cold lake. He never thought much of it, until a trip with his friends led him to the exact same lake from his nightmares. And what happened that night in the water still haunts him to this day. And finally, a young mother kept dreaming of someone breaking into her home. She could hear the footsteps, the doorknob rattling, the heavy breathing just outside her bedroom. But when she woke up one night, she realized it wasn't just her imagination. There really was someone in the house. Pause, whisper tone. 3 dreams, 3 lives, and 3 horrifying moments where sleep and reality collided in the worst possible way. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and remember, this could happen to anyone, even you. And if you're brave enough, hit that subscribe button now, because after these stories, you may never look at your dreams the same way again. Narrator low, steady tone. Her name was Maya, 19 years old, just a freshman in college, living off campus in a small rental house. On paper, her life was normal. She was studying psychology, she worked part-time at a bookstore, and she kept mostly to herself. But there was something about Maya that her friends always noticed. She looked tired. Not in the typical college student way, but in a haunted way, like someone carrying a secret she didn't know how to talk about. That secret started with a dream. It always began the same. Maya would be lying in bed, unable to move, her room lit only by the faint glow of the street lamp outside. At the foot of her bed, there he stood, a man with no face, not a blur, not a mask, just smooth, pale skin where features should be. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. And every time, she would jolt awake gasping for breath. At first, she told herself it was just stress. Everyone gets nightmares, right? She was starting college, she was alone for the first time. Maybe her brain was just adjusting. But deep down, Maya couldn't shake the dread that followed her all day long, because every time she closed her eyes, he came back. Sound. Faint creak of wood, whispering wind. The nightmare repeated night after night. The faceless man never moved. He just watched. But the longer it went on, the worse it became. First, he stood near the door. Then, a few nights later, he was at the middle of her room. By the next week, he was at the foot of her bed. Each night, closer. Maya stopped sleeping. She downed coffee, tried to pull all-nighters, even slept in the library once just to avoid being in her bedroom. But the dreams followed her anyway. And then came the day she saw him when she was awake. She was walking home from class, headphones in, backpack heavy on her shoulders. As she cut through the small alley behind the bookstore, she glanced over her shoulder. There, at the end of the alley, a tall figure, standing perfectly still. Maya froze. Something about him made her stomach flip. He was too far to see clearly, but in that moment, she just knew. It was him, the faceless man. She blinked, and he was gone. Pause, whisper tone. Have you ever had a dream bleed into real life like that? The kind of moment that makes you question whether your mind is tricking you, or whether something is truly following you. Maya tried to tell her roommate about it, but halfway through, she realized how insane it sounded. I keep dreaming about a faceless man, and now I think I saw him outside? Her roommate just laughed nervously, told her she was overworked, and reminded her she was studying psychology, after all. Maybe she was just priming her brain with all the weird stuff she read in class. But that night, the dream got worse. This time, she wasn't paralyzed. She could move. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, and saw him right next to her. Close enough that if he'd had a mouth, she could have felt his breath. And then he reached out his hand. Maya woke up with a scream, heart racing so hard she thought she'd pass out. She looked at her arm, and froze. Sound. Sharp sting, echoing heartbeat. There was a bruise. A deep, purple bruise in the shape of fingers wrapping around her wrist. From that point on, Maya avoided her house as much as possible. She spent late nights in the library, hung out in crowded coffee shops, and crashed at a friend's dorm whenever she could. But she couldn't avoid sleep forever. And the bruises kept showing up. Her arms, her legs, once even her collarbone. Every time she dreamed of the faceless man touching her, she woke with the mark of his grip. By now, she was terrified. Not just of her dreams, but of being in her own home. So she did what anyone would do. She set up a cheap security camera in her bedroom, just to prove to herself that nothing was there. Sound. Soft static, eerie ticking. The first night, nothing. Just hours of footage showing her tossing and turning. The second night, same thing. The third night, though, something changed. Around 3:17 a.m., the camera picked up movement. Pause. Let it sink in. It wasn't a dream. A man, tall, wearing a hood, was standing outside her bedroom window, perfectly still, just watching. He stayed there for hours. When Maya saw the footage the next morning, she collapsed on the floor, shaking so violently she couldn't even cry, because she knew, deep in her bones, that it wasn't just some random man. It was him, the faceless man from her dreams. She called the police immediately. An officer came, took her statement and checked the perimeter. They found footprints in the dirt under her window, large, heavy ones, but no man. And the worst part? When the officer asked her for a description of the man, she froze. What was she supposed to say? That he didn't have a face? That he wasn't supposed to exist at all? Maya moved out a week later. She never spent another night in that house. But she still has the footage. The police filed it away as evidence, though nothing ever came of it. And every once in a while, late at night, Maya swears she sees him again. Not in her dreams anymore, but in the reflection of a dark window. Watching, waiting, sound, silence, then faint knock. Narrator soft, chilling. If you're still listening, ask yourself this: was Maya's faceless man just a stalker? Or did something darker slip out of her dreams into her waking world? And if you've ever had a nightmare that left marks on your skin, or bled into reality in ways you couldn't explain, maybe you already know the answer. Pause, drop voice low. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might make you think twice about your own dreams. Narrator, slow, steady tone. His name was Ethan, 21 years old. A laid-back, easygoing guy who didn't really believe in anything supernatural. If you'd asked him a year ago about dreams, he would have laughed, said they were nothing but random brain static. But then came the drowning dream. It started one night in spring. Ethan closed his eyes after a long day, and when he opened them again, he was floating in the middle of a dark, endless lake. The water was black, cold, and still. No sound, no movement, just silence. And then, without warning, he sank. Something yanked him down hard, dragging him deeper and deeper, until his chest felt like it was going to burst. He couldn't see what was pulling him. There were no ropes, no hands, just invisible force, stronger than anything he could fight. Every time, Just before he reached the bottom, Ethan would wake up choking, gasping for air like he'd really been underwater. First, he brushed it off. A weird nightmare. Maybe too much late-night pizza, or one too many horror movies before bed. But the dream didn't go away. Came back the next week. Then again. And again. Always the same. The lake. The silence. The invisible hands dragging him under. Only it wasn't exactly the same. Each time, the dream got worse. The water was colder. The grip was tighter. And sometimes, just before waking up, he swore he could hear whispers, like voices calling from the depths. Ethan's friends noticed something was off. He looked exhausted, jumpy. He'd wake up in the middle of the night coughing so hard it sounded like he'd swallowed water. One of his roommates joked, "Dude, maybe you drowned in a past life or something." Ethan just laughed it off, but deep down, it didn't feel funny. Because after the third or fourth time, he stopped waking up before the bottom. Now, in the dream, he reached it, and what he saw there made his blood run cold. The outline of figures, dozens of them, pale, gray bodies drifting beneath the surface, their arms reaching, their hands clawing at him. That's when he always woke up, gasping, clutching his chest, his sheets soaked with sweat. Pause, softer, eerie tone. If you've ever had a dream so real you woke up swearing it had just happened, then you know exactly how Ethan felt. Summer rolled around, and Ethan's friends planned a camping trip. A weekend out by the woods, just a couple hours away from town. Bonfires, beer, fishing, swimming. When Ethan heard the location, his stomach dropped. It was by a lake. He'd never been there before, never even seen a picture. But when they arrived, he froze. Because it was the same black water, the same endless stillness, the same feeling that the surface was hiding something beneath. He didn't say a word to his friends. He didn't want to be the buzzkill, the one who admitted a stupid dream was freaking him out. But inside, his heart was hammering. That first night, they built a fire. Everyone was laughing, drinking, telling stories. At some point, someone suggested a midnight swim. Ethan immediately shook his head. "Nah, I'm good." But his friends teased him. "What, scared? Come on, man, live a little." And finally, against his better judgment, Ethan gave in. He stripped down to his shorts, took a deep breath, and followed them into the water. The second his body hit the lake, it was like ice. Not just cold, but unnatural. Like he'd just jumped into liquid stone. The others splashed and laughed. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling. The water clung to him, heavy, pulling at his limbs. And then it happened. Sound. Sudden splash, heartbeat rising. Something grabbed his ankle. At first, he thought it was a friend messing around. But when he kicked, the grip only tightened. Another hand wrapped around his other leg. He was yanked under. The world went black and silent, just like in his dreams. He thrashed, clawed, tried to push back toward the surface, but the water pressed down on him like a weight. And in that suffocating darkness, he saw them, the figures, the same pale shapes from his dreams. Dozens of them, floating just below him, their hands reaching, their mouths moving soundlessly. One of them grabbed his wrist, another his shoulder. He could feel the icy grip, nails digging into his skin, pulling him deeper. Ethan's chest screamed for air. He fought with everything he had, kicking, twisting, punching through the dark. Somehow he broke free for a split second, his body shooting upward toward the dim shimmer of the surface. He burst through, coughing, choking, screaming. His friends rushed to him, panicked, dragging him back to shore. They said he was pale as a ghost, that his lips were blue, that for a moment, they thought they were pulling a dead body out of the lake. Later that night, wrapped in a blanket by the fire, Ethan finally told them about the dreams, about the lake, about the hands. No one laughed. Not this time. They just sat there, quiet, staring out at the water. And that's when one of his friends, who'd grown up in the area, cleared his throat and said something that made Ethan's blood run cold. "There's a story about this lake," he said. "Back in the 1800s, a whole group of settlers drowned here. No one knows how. Some say they got caught in the weeds. Some say they walked in on purpose. But people around here say their spirits never left. Ethan never went near the water again. He never swam, never fished, never camped by a lake. But the dreams? They didn't stop. Even today, years later, he still wakes up some nights gasping for air, his body shaking, his chest burning. And no matter how far he is from that place, in the darkness behind his eyes, he's always back in the water, always sinking, always pulled under. Sound. Faint bubbling, whispering voices underwater. And if you asked him now, he'd tell you those weren't dreams. They were warnings. Because the night he nearly drowned, the hands weren't just in his head. They were real. Narrator soft, chilling. So, what do you think? Were those settlers reaching for Ethan from the other side? Or did his dreams somehow draw him to the very place where he was meant to drown? And if you've ever had a dream about dying, maybe it isn't just your mind playing tricks. Maybe it's a glimpse of where your story ends. Pause, a voice drops. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story is the one that will make you question what you hear when you wake up in the middle of the night. Narrator, calm, steady tone. Her name was Claire, 26 years old, a single mother raising her 3-year-old daughter, Ava, in a small, quiet neighborhood. Life wasn't easy, but she was making it work. She had a steady job, a modest rental house, and a routine that kept her and Ava safe. At least that's what she thought. It all started with a dream. Claire was lying in bed, drifting between sleep and waking, when she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving across the hardwood floor. At first, she thought she was imagining it. But then came the sound of the doorknob rattling. Someone was trying to get into her room. Her heart raced, her body frozen. She could hear the footsteps again, moving down the hall, closer to Ava's room. And just when she was about to scream, she woke up. Sound. Sudden intake of breath. It was just a dream, or so she thought. The next night, it happened again. The footsteps, the rattling doorknob, the heavy breathing just outside her door. She jolted awake, drenched in sweat, her ears straining in the silence. The dreams came back night after night, always the same. Someone was in the house. Someone was trying to get to her and her daughter. Claire told herself it was stress. Being a single mom wasn't easy. Long hours, late nights, exhaustion piling up. Maybe her brain was just inventing worst-case scenarios. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling. Because every dream ended the same way, with the intruder standing right outside her door, waiting. By the 4th night, Claire was terrified to fall asleep. She double-checked the locks 3 times before bed, left a light on in the hallway, and kept her phone on the nightstand. But still, the dream came. Only this time, when she woke up, the nightmare didn't end. Sound. Floor creak. Soft knock. She opened her eyes in the dark, her chest tight. And then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Moving across her living room. Claire froze, her ears straining. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might give her away. And then, the unmistakable sound of the doorknob to her bedroom turning. She leapt out of bed, grabbed Ava from her room, and locked themselves both in the bathroom. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone as she dialed 911. Whispering into the receiver, she told the operator, "Someone's in my house. Please hurry. My daughter, please." The operator kept her calm, told her to stay hidden, stay quiet, stay on the line. Through the thin bathroom door, Claire could hear the sounds. The intruder moving through the house, opening doors, shuffling drawers, and then silence. Sound. Muffled footsteps fade. Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Finally, the faint wail of sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flickered against the bathroom wall. The intruder ran. The police found him trying to cut across the backyard. A man in his 30s, dressed in black, carrying a knife in his pocket. When they pulled him in for questioning, Claire thought she'd finally be able to sleep again, that it was over. But then, she learned the truth. The man hadn't just picked her house at random. He told the police he'd been watching it for weeks. He knew she lived alone. He knew where her bedroom was, He knew when she turned the lights off every night. And he admitted he'd been planning to break in for a long time. Claire's blood ran cold. Those dreams, the footsteps, the doorknob, the intruder outside her door, weren't just her imagination. They were warnings. She had been dreaming about him the whole time. After that night, Claire moved in with her sister. She couldn't bring herself to step foot in that house again. And even now, years later, she still has the dreams sometimes. The footsteps, the rattling doorknob, the intruder waiting just outside. Only now, when she wakes up, she isn't sure if it's just her mind replaying the trauma, or if someone new has started watching her. Sound. Faint footsteps approaching, sudden silence. Narrator soft, chilling. Think about that for a moment. Claire's nightmare was her reality waiting to happen. Her subconscious knew, before she did, that someone was already in her life, already planning to shatter her safety. So the next time you dream of footsteps in the dark, or a hand on your doorknob, ask yourself, is it just a nightmare? Or is it the sound of something waiting for you on the other side of the door? Pause, whisper tone. Subscribe now if you're still awake, because what comes next is the part that will stay with you long after you turn out the lights. Narrator, steady, reflective tone. 3 stories, 3 lives, 3 dreams that refused to stay locked inside the mind. A faceless man, first seen in the fragile world of nightmares, later revealed watching through the glass of a real bedroom window. A lake, dark and endless, pulling a young man into its depths long before he ever set foot on its shore. And a mother, dreaming of footsteps and rattling doorknobs, only to discover that the nightmare was already inside her home. These aren't just coincidences. These are the moments that blur the line between the dream world and the one we live in. Dreams are supposed to be harmless, strange little echoes of memory, imagination, and fear stitched together by our subconscious. At least that's what science tells us. Random brain activity. Nothing more. But then, how do we explain Maya's bruises? How do we explain Ethan's drowning dream matching the exact lake he'd never seen before? How do we explain Claire's visions of an intruder weeks before he broke into her home? Were they warnings? Were their minds protecting them, showing them truths they weren't ready to see in the daylight? Or was something else at play? Something darker slipping through the cracks while they slept? Psychologists say our brains can't always tell the difference between what's real and what isn't. That's why you wake from a nightmare with your heart pounding, your throat raw from a scream you didn't realize you let out. Your body believes the dream was real. But maybe, sometimes, it is. Maybe dreams are doors, thin walls where reality leaks through. And maybe, just maybe, the things waiting on the other side aren't just figments of imagination. They're watching, listening, waiting for the chance to step across. Sound. Faint whispering, soft knock. So tonight, when you lie in bed, when your eyes grow heavy and your mind begins to slip away, ask yourself, what world are you stepping into? Because some dreams aren't random. Some dreams aren't meaningless. Some dreams bleed. Some dreams linger. And some dreams follow you home. Pause, whisper tone. Tonight, when you close your eyes, just remember, some dreams don't stay in your head. Some dreams are waiting for you when you wake up.